Great. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, at least on the East Coast and middle of the country. It's so great to have so many of you here. I'm Robin Troutman. I'm the Interim Executive Director for the National Association of Councils on Developmental Disabilities, and we are so glad that you are here for this webinar talking about firsthand experience of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities or caregivers or family members, and as they age and deal with their daily life. So this is part of our Bridging Aging and Disability Networks grant. So a number of people we know are a part of that, but we're so glad to be able to expand this great information and perspective to as many people as we can. I first want to say thank you to our speakers today, Meredith White, Eric Stoker, Lisa Matthews, and Santa Perez. We thank you for A, volunteering to join us, and B, sharing your personal story. We are very fortunate that you are willing to be a little vulnerable with us and talk about your experience. And of course, I want to give a huge shout out to Eric Berg and Andrew Morris for their coordination of the webinar and logistics, and of course the grant. And then finally, my thanks to Katie Arnold from University of Illinois Chicago, who is on our leadership team for this grant, for pulling the speakers together and creating what I know is going to be a really fascinating and informative session. So with that, I kick it off to you, Katie.
Great. Thank you, Robin, and welcome everyone. My name is Katie Arnold, and I want to especially welcome all of the new grantees for the Bridging Aging and Disability projects. We have 10 new states that we're super excited to be joining. That now brings us to a total of 17 states that we're working with to create communities of practice within their state. These webinars are part of what is helping provide information and support, to the states as you're doing such important work to bridge aging and disability. Again, my name is Katie Arnold. I'm the Director of Stakeholder Engagement at the Institute on Disability and Human Development at the University of Illinois at Chicago, and also a faculty member there within the Department of Disability and Human Development. I'm a sibling. Also, I have a sister with intellectual and developmental disabilities that really shaped my worldview and influenced my career path in a big way. And I'm the previous founding executive director of the Sibling Leadership Network, a national nonprofit for people who have a brother or sister with a disability. And now they have a great new executive director, Caitlin McNamara. And I'm so pleased to have, this topic today, really focusing on the lived experience of people as they're bridging aging and disability networks. This is such an important topic that is not really shared enough. I think we talk about a lot of things kind of at the systems level, or we ask for different perspectives, but to really hear from the lived experiences, I think is so important to really understand what people are going through as they're trying to navigate the different services and supports in the disability world, in the aging field. And I think we have a lot to learn about this. I know I conducted some research recently where I centered the voices of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities about family support. And I had the opportunity to interview 10 adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their key support people. And they shared some things about ways that people with disabilities are supporting their aging families and parents, which isn't really thought about a lot. A lot of times it's thought of that the parents are the ones that are providing all the support to the people with disabilities. And so I really found that people with disabilities are also providing a lot of support to their aging parents that is not acknowledged in areas like physical support, doing chores around the house, emotional support, just being there and providing emotional support to their aging family members, reminders for medication or going to the doctors, things like helping with laundry and cleaning around the house. Also, I saw and I learned in this research that many families struggle with planning for the future as everyone's getting older, and families need a lot more support in that area. And I think it really has some important policy implications across the aging and the disability policy networks, because there are some times where the person with intellectual and developmental disabilities, or IDD, is actually providing support in a way that may help their aging parents remain in their own home instead of needing nursing or outside support. So there's a lot that I learned in the research that I did. I think there's a lot more we're going to learn today on this panel, and so I'm really pleased. We have 4 people with lived experience, and I'm gonna, ask them to start out. We're going to kind of go around and have each person do a brief introduction and share a little bit about their lived experience with the disability system and the aging system. And we will start out with Santa Perez, who is a self-advocate and the co-chair of the Partnership Council. Santa.
Hi, everybody. Today, I'm going to talk to you about my mom. And give me a second.
And Santa, I know you kind of put some of what you want to share today into your device. And so I think you're getting ready to share that with everyone. So
Amy mom's dementia started 10 years ago. It started very slowly, but the signs were there. My sister and I would notice certain behaviors that she didn't have before. Being more forgetful than normal. Dings on her car. Becoming more worried about her name on documents, even if the documents were outdated. We needed to start to make plans for her. One big thing was my mom felt that she had to take care of me physically. Even though she hadn't taken care of me in years, she still felt the need to. As her dementia progressed, we had to take the caregiver role for her. It was hard to tell her what to do, rather than having her take the lead. I had to make medical decisions for her. It was a paradigm shift in roles. Making sure she took her meds, telling her how to put clothes on, and constantly securing that the door was locked, to make sure she wouldn't walk out the door. My sister and I both had power of attorney for Mom. Together we would decide on her care and the next steps. My mom had expressed her wishes before she really got sick. My sister and I complimented each other. She knew the legal side of things and I knew the disability side. I knew the right people to ask for help. Both the aging systems and the disability systems are alike, but I don't think they talk or collaborate with each other. I believe that both systems should be at both tables. Maybe have a council member, on each board, or maybe a summit or a hotline. Something to keep the conversations going.
Thank you, Santa. That's excellent to hear part of your story and also some of the things that you think could really help with bridging the aging and the disability networks. And the work that's happening here within the states is just that, getting people together to talk more and learn from each other in the different fields and networks. So thanks for kicking us off. And Meredith, I will turn to you next. So Meredith White is a self-advocate and has a different story than Santa and a really important story to share. So go ahead, Meredith.
Hi, my name is Meredith White. I am a self-advocate. I grew up in Michigan. I'm 46 years old. My favorite color is purple. I moved to DC in June of 2023 to live with my sister. I have always advocated for myself. Family and friends are important to me because they know me well and provide support when I need help. I am learning as my parents are aging that I need to have a larger support system and also help as much as possible. I'm building a new peer group and slowly making friends in DC, but it takes a lot of time and patience. And it is really difficult starting over, but it is possible. One tip I would give to people out there is be a self-advocate for yourself because you are important. I moved to DC so that I can be more independent and have choices for a better life opportunities. I lived in a group home for 15 years and was not able to live the life I wanted to live. I wanted to live where I am part of the community, which includes work and leisure activities. I have also been able to be involved with my church, which is important to me. I moved to DC as part of our family planning for the future. My sister will be taking a more active role with my mom's help while she is able to help with transition.
Thank you, Meredith. And that's a really powerful story. And I think it's a story that people can relate to, but it's also hard. I think sometimes families have to make some hard choices about where they live and who moves, you know, like who should be the one that moves, especially when you're not living close, and starting over can be really challenging. And I know you've been going through that, and it's not an easy thing. So thank you so much for what you shared today. Next, I'm going to turn to Lisa Matthews, who's a sibling and a leader with the Sibling Leadership Network.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Katie, for inviting me to share my story today. My name is Lisa Matthews, and I'm the new appointed Vice Board Chair for the Sibling Leadership Network and a member of the NACDD's Partnership Council. Today, I want to share my lived experience as a caregiver for my brother and mom, navigating the disability and aging systems of support. I hope that after hearing my story today, as with everyone else on the panel, you'll come away from this discussion understanding that there are gaps and challenges faced in the disability and aging systems by those navigating for themselves and those navigating on behalf of their loved ones. For more than 25 years, I have provided support for my brother who was diagnosed with autism and other complex medical issues to maintain and, where possible, improve the services he receives that allows him to remain at home with our mom and engage in the community as he chooses. More recently, I began navigating services to support my mother, who lost her job about 4 months ago. I am a native Washingtonian and an agent for change who has had leadership roles and served on a number of committees for the disability service organizations to help improve the lives of others. It was from this place that I always thought I was in position to help my family when the time came. Boy, was I wrong. My strategy was to create a roadmap to help my family by connecting with organizations and volunteering my time. My plan has been to show up to meetings and events, participate in trainings to learn about the disability and aging systems, and arm myself with knowledge of how these systems connect. My goal is to simply be able to make the call, get the information, and fulfill the request for whatever I need from my mom and brother to ensure that they both have a stable quality of life. The reality of my strategy and plan by which to accomplish these goals has been vastly different. With my brother, his needs have changed throughout the years as he continues to age. He is naive to the dangers of the world and could never live alone. My role has varied with issues to support him that has included working with his team to ensure positive outcomes at his day program, troubleshooting transportation issues, finding a dedicated counselor to address his mental well-being, managing doctor's appointments, advocating for new goals during his IP meetings. Each year after his IP, we would leave those meetings with hope and promise that his team would implement changes to what he wants and needs, all to come back the following year with minimum changes in the service plans. My mom, for the most part, was just thankful for these services because for her, it was better than nothing. My brother lives with our mom, as I mentioned, and I have been the point of contact. At first, because it was difficult for my mom to respond in a timely manner due to work demands. And now, because she does not understand how all the pieces connect within his systems of service. My mom is getting older and up until a few months ago, worked tirelessly at her job for more than 20 years until it unexpectedly ended. I am keenly aware that my mom's ability to grasp and understand things has changed significantly. We're now faced with an abrupt hardship that I tried to plan and communicate to her for more than 25 years. I knew the day would come that I would care for my mother and brother, but it has always been my hope that a plan would be in place before now. The personal impact of my mom's job loss weighs heavy. I now take time during the day to make calls, fill out applications, write letters, and help mom with the grief in losing her job, all while trying to work full-time from home. For me, trying to absorb the fact that my mom did not fully understand how not discussing the importance of future planning has been hard. I am already grieving the consequences of no plan and reminded of this more when I visit with my brother and my mom. I sometimes go through emotions of anger, guilt, resentment, as I think about all the work that I've put in over the years navigating systems for others, and there's no plan for my own family. I think of all the discussions that we've had about financial management, retirement, estate planning that were deflected, pushed off, and dismissed. The situation our family face now reminds me of a time nearly 10 years ago when I made the decision to resign from my job to take on, and winning, by the way, an enormous task of saving my mother's home after it went into foreclosure. While I find myself here again, and while at times it feels scary and exhausting, I'm reminded that all I can do is keep pushing forward. Presently, I am navigating issues for my mom related with unemployment, Medicare, retirement, transportation, financial management, and emotional stability. And while technology has put access to information at our fingertips, if an individual has had no computer experience or has limited access to transportation to seek any training, they're left behind. In helping my mom, I find that I am doing twice the work just to check one thing off the list. A quick example here, recently applied for Medicare for my mom online. And because she was not clear of the information that she was providing to me over the phone, I inadvertently put in the wrong information, and she now is unable to enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan. The volume of information is so overwhelming for my mom, and she gets intimidated easily trying to process what she needs to do. She also has limitations in how to navigate using her cell phone to perhaps even send pictures for me to be able to better understand what information I need to do to support her. And so I find myself having to balance and going to her home and reviewing mail and creating shell accounts to monitor requests just to keep things going. We sometimes spend time on the phone doing three-way calls for different things that she needs, all to wait for them to say that we have to complete an application online. On some level, my role has changed to being the parent for my mother and my brother. I've become their case manager, and our time together now devoted more to what I need to do rather than just enjoying the moments of simply being a family. Our family unit is small, and I'm the only one in position to help them both, as there's no other family member that can step in and step up to assist. The care for my brother and my mom is increasing at a rapid pace, and as life would have it, I have no control over when caregiving will become a full-time job and how the disruption of it all will allow me to take care of me. I'll end here and hope that my story has an impact on those listening today and those who may listen to this recording in the future to have a sense of what families experience attempting to navigate systems to support their loved ones. Recognizing that individuals with a disability are living longer, we're faced with a huge need to create space for awareness and education of the issues marred in such a complex system that at times feels deliberately frustrating, and to try to work together to bridge the gaps. What now keeps me awake is the reality that I would not have another me when I need to navigate these services for myself in the future. Thank you.
Wow, Lisa, thank you for all that you shared and just the complexity that you captured with the family experience for family caregivers. And, you know, I just want to highlight, you mentioned the impact on employment. And I think that's very real for many family caregivers. And then also just as a sibling, you know, I think that so many siblings are in what we refer to often as the ultimate sandwich generation, with juggling multiple caregiving roles, you know, often really positioned at that juncture right between navigating the aging system as their parents get older and the disability system for their brother or sister with a disability. So thank you for sharing that sibling story, Lisa. And Eric, last but not least, if you want to go ahead and share some of your story.
Great, thank you, Katie. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eric Stoker, and I'm the Information Specialist for the Utah Developmental Disabilities Council, and I'm also a self-advocate and the chair of the National Association of Councils on Developmental Disabilities, Bridging Aging and Disabilities Project. And I'm really excited to be here today. So I live in West Jordan, Utah with my parents, and as I've grown into an adult, I received post-transition secondary school services through the Jordan School District here in the state of Utah. They helped me with learning how to access public transportation, cooking, social skills, and job skills. So for me, basically, I was not eligible for the state of Utah's Division of Services for People with Disability Services because my mom, before I went out of high school, my mom and I did the interview process and went through it. And then a letter came back to my mom and I, and it said, Eric is capable of doing his own things. So we were denied services through them, but I've been thriving ever since. And then I have attended classes to help me be a self-advocate. And I have also attended recreation activities to help me with exercise and my social skills. And then also what I do on a daily basis is, besides work and have fun, I help my parents out with different things around our house. Like I help them with some of the daily chores. I help with heavy things because my parents are aging, and I want to make sure they have a happy, healthy life like I do. So that way they can be independent sometimes, but sometimes it's a little tricky.
Thank you, Eric. That was really helpful to hear, especially all that you're doing around the house to help your parents as they're getting older, which I think is kind of the natural course of things within many families. And so what does that look like and what does that mean? It's really great to hear you sharing about that. I want to encourage everybody listening now to put any questions you have in the chat as we're going along today. And we'll take questions at the end. I'm going to throw out 2 questions for our panelists today to respond to, and then we'll be looking to the questions that come from all of you. So start putting them in the question and answer or the chat at this time, and we'll get to them in just a little bit. But now I want to ask a question that some of you have already touched on a little bit. The question is what's been the hardest part as well as the most helpful part as you've had to navigate the aging system and the disability system? And so I'll just see, Santa, is there anything else that you want to share about that? I know you did touch on a few things already.
So I want that I want it. No. I know. No. If my mom was providing, no. The provider did not know a lot about disability. And for us, family, we did not know a lot about dementia. What you have to know. It was a lot of reading. No. Learning. A lot of learning. On demand. On demand. Yes. I wish somebody have talked to us ahead of time and tell us about the process and dementia.
Yeah. Thank you, Santa, for sharing that. Meredith, is there anything that you want to share in addition to about the hardest part or the most helpful part?
I think the only thing I can say is just continuing to advocate for myself, and being in DC I think is going to be really helpful because I've met people over time from visiting before I moved here, so they have a lot of information that is helpful.
Yeah. No, that's great to hear. And I mean, you're starting over trying to develop your friendship network. And I know that peer support is so important for everyone to get. And so I know you're trying to build that peer support network of friends as you've just moved there more recently. So that's something for, people to take into consideration, that when you do have a move like that, you're kind of starting over and building that peer support that's so important.
Yeah, that's really important, and just remembering that it takes a lot of time and patience.
Yeah.
But it's possible.
Great. Thanks, Meredith. Lisa, is there anything that you want to share related to the hardest part or the most helpful part for you in navigating the disability and the aging systems?
Yeah, I feel like I spoke a lot about what the challenges have been for me with the different systems. And I feel in most days that the most challenging thing is to just allow my inner critic to make me feel like I constantly feel like I'm not doing enough. I'll have a list of lists, and it's a challenge to feel that I check 3 things off, and then one huge thing kind of sets me back in just trying to navigate that while working. That's one of the biggest things. But I do definitely want to mention the most helpful, you talked, Meredith, about your peer networks of support. I know for years, a lot of siblings did not know that system was there, even just for siblings to be able to have those supports, and just to have other sense of communities for individuals that are caring for their loved ones. that just truly get it and just can kind of understand when we feel most vulnerable, and can't be that for our loved ones when it's our job to wear the cape and the care for them. In some of those spaces, we're allowed to just be and to be able to just get the support and information that we need. I'm so thankful for a lot of the organizations that I've been connected to, because I would fire off text messages or emails, and folks have been really generous about sharing resources that have definitely helped me along the way. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, that peer support. And we often talk about the triad perspective, the three perspectives of, you know, the person with a disability or self-advocate, the parents, and the siblings. And those three different perspectives all need peer support within their own peer group, but then also need to learn from each other, and talk to each other. And so, and of course, there's more than just the triad. There's a lot more family members that are, you know, extended family, chosen family, that are also part of this, that need support as well in these conversations. So, Eric, is there anything that you'd like to share related to either the hardest part or the most helpful part, for you with navigating the disability and aging systems?
Yeah, I can share it real quick. So I think the helpful part for me is that my parents have worked with me to help me decide what my future will look like, and they support what I want to do in the future. The hardest part is trying to figure out what my future is going to look like without my parents, because I have a sister named Allison who's younger than I am, so I have a sibling. She's a year younger than me though. She lives in a different part of Utah, which is a different city in Utah, and she lives about 15 minutes away from her house, and it's just really hard. And you don't want to lose all the connections that I have worked for, but it's always been helpful to have my parents work and help me through this. And it's been hard to understand housing and how I might access those resources that are available out there for me, though. But I also have, that's helpful for me, is my coworkers here at the DD Council at Utah have helped me and are available to me if I have any questions at all about this stuff, because I don't know what's going to happen in the future, because that's really scary right now for this point.
Yeah. Thanks, Eric, for sharing that. I'm going to actually go to, I'm seeing some great questions in the question and answer box. So I'm going to go to those now and ask, a couple people have asked about supported decision making. And one person said, what about supported decision making? And, you know, when sometimes people do not listen to the person with disabilities. And then, you know, another person asked, do you have any experience using supported decision making, whether it's a formal or informal type of supported decision making? I know for my family, my parents were not familiar with the term supported decision making when my sister, you know, became an adult, and, you know, they didn't know about all of the alternatives to guardianship either. I think that more information is now coming out about those alternatives and the concept of supported decision making, which can be done whether somebody has a guardian or not. It's really about making sure the person has the information so that they can really make their own decision with support, whether it's the right decision or not, whether their family thinks it's the right decision or not. The family supports them in that decision making as much as possible. So Meredith, do you have any experience with supported decision making, or can you share a little bit about how your family does that?
Yeah, I would say from the time I was very young, as I got older, you know, I always spoke about how I felt about something. So I made clear what I wanted to do, and it was always considered in making decisions. And then I was
Yeah.
included more and more as I got older.
That's great. And it sounds like your family just kind of naturally did that and, you know, supported you to make your own decisions throughout your life, which is wonderful. But that doesn't always happen in every family. So I don't know if there's anyone else that wants to share their thoughts about supported decision making.
I mean, for me, I feel that my mom grew up in a generation where she didn't know a lot about what it meant to have to navigate the system for a child with a disability. And so I feel seeing her in this stage in my life, just kind of understanding the concept of how she was reared, that a lot of it was her own guilt and just being protective, to where she was not allowing my brother to always make decisions. And I have inserted that a little different and have been able to help teach them both how that is a win-win for them in our family.
Thanks, Lisa. And I know some states have formalized supported decision making more than others, where you can really, have more of a formal supported decision making agreement where you kind of write down and clearly lay out, the ways that someone is provided support for decisions they make. Somebody asked a question related to power of attorney. Santa, I know that you have experience. You were the power of attorney for your mom, along with your sister, as your mom was aging. Did you use any concepts of supported decision making, or in that power of attorney, or how did your family kind of do that with your mom as you were the power of attorney for her?
There was a point in time my mom kind of understood that there'll be a day that will she wanted not be able to make decisions on her own. Okay. We talked about it ahead of time. Really ahead of time. She encouraged. She heard. No. She really talked about what she wanted ahead of time. Me and my sister had a pretty good idea what she wanted in her life.
That's great, Santa. Yeah, I mean, and that makes it easier in some ways when you've had those difficult conversations about the future as people are, getting older, and that kind of end of life planning, those tough discussions. But we do have someone put in the chat, that she wrote, I think the concept of planning is hard to convince family members, even if we are in the field. Any hints or clues about how to help family members understand the need for a plan? And then someone else also stated, that's a great point. We're working on this issue, but how do you reframe the concept of planning to age beyond just the financial stability, which of course is part of the discussion? I think that's what people often focus on, how you help plan for the finances, but like layering that with concepts of identifying a care group or needs changing that are really important. So does anyone have any thoughts about, just doing that planning and how to start that difficult dialogue within families?
I would just say that make sure that that they're included through the entire process, because I think a lot of times people with disabilities are often considered as not thinking about a lot of these things. And I think that they do, and they know what they want to do and where they would want to live when parents are gone and what kind of life they want. And I think that it's very important to talk about it continuously
Yeah,
because it may change over the years,
yeah,
but just having an actual record of what, where they want to live, what kind of activities,
mhm,
and changing it as time goes on.
yeah. Thanks for
So that
sharing that.
when the time comes, there is something to go off of.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, Meredith. I know within my family, we started planning for the future really out of fear because I saw other siblings where their families hadn't planned and it caused all these problems in the family. And so that's the way I convinced my parents to start planning. And we started out focusing our planning sessions. It was really just like once or twice a year when our family got together where we'd have these more intentional conversations about the future. And it started centered really around my sister Patrice, who has an intellectual disability. And then over time, it broadened to everybody's different needs at different times. And it was kind of lovely to see how, because we had kind of started this rhythm and opened the door, that the momentum built. And so, like when my husband and I were, transitioning to adopt our child, we needed more support. And so the family, talked about that. As my parents are aging now, we're starting to have some conversations about that. The hardest part, I think, was starting to talk about things. And so I don't know, Lisa or Eric, if you want to share anything about this idea of planning for the future and, how your family's done it and what's been hard and what's worked well for you. Eric, you want to start?
Yeah, I can start real quick. So for me, basically, I was actually talking to my parents, like trying to figure out like what's going on with my personal life because as I mentioned in my earlier, I have my sister Allison, but I don't know what's going to happen with my sister sometimes because she may go live somewhere else or everything else because that we're still trying to plan my future. But I know if anything was to happen to my parents, I would want to be with closer to my sister and my niece and my brother-in-law in case I need them for anything. Because right now we're still in the planning stages, but I know for a fact I want to either live with my sister and her brother-in-law and my little niece or be in my own place. It's right now it's complicated right now trying to plan these things, but it's in the works so far.
Yeah. That's great to hear, Eric. And life changes. And so it's great that you have some ideas. You've had those conversations and started those. And then Lisa, along these same lines, someone put a question in, especially for you, related to planning, asking if you could talk a little bit about your plans or thoughts about when your brother reaches the end of his life. And also, what about your own plans for when you reach your twilight years?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't think I have a good answer here, which is why I show up in these spaces. I started these conversations years before beginning to what I am in now as my crisis mode. I feel that if nothing more, with my mom now working from, or not working, but being at home instead of working, we're really beginning to have some really uncomfortable conversations in a good way. And so while it's just been 4 months since she's been home, I'm hopeful that we are getting to a point because she's living in it now and she's seeing what the impact is. I have to be honest, a lot of times when I would think about my future or my retirement, I was always thinking about saving for my family because I knew that their situation was not going to be where they would have a quality of life where they'd be able to manage and take care of their own bills. My brother lives with my mother, and so that's just a lot of weight on me. And so I have foregone a lot of vacations and a lot of things because I am always thinking about the future planning because it's something that's not discussed in my house the way that I hear it can happen in most cases.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa, for sharing that. Santa, is there anything that you would like to share related to this concept of planning for the future or end of life planning, those types of things? Maybe even for yourself. I know you talked about related to your mom.
So when we like, to talk about mom and her mom on COVID. COVID was up and down. I really was afraid what might happen if I got COVID. So I wrote my will. I wrote the directive and the life because I don't want my son to have that burden on him when I unable, no, when I am even, no, when I'm able to make that decision on my own now.
That's great, Santa. Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
So when me and my son have already had that conversation, and it was hard, but to know he knows what I want. He knows when. No, he knows where my paperwork is in the house. So it's my mom ready to begin the process to everybody in my family about the end of life.
Excellent, Santa. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, doing a will, having an advance directive. I mean, that's something that we all should do, whether we've done it or not, because it's a hard thing to think about, and then just the logistics of finding time with busy life to do it. But it's a great example that you've shared, that you've done that, you've shared that, you've put down on paper what your wishes are, so that it's really clear for your son and other family members, which is excellent. I see another question, what happens if families don't understand self-determination or supported decision-making? And that happens, it's a learning process for many families with these concepts. I think, there's also things that about self-determination and supported decision-making that the aging field can learn from the disability field and vice versa. And so professionals talking and sharing about you know, different resources and information that have helped families learn about those topics and concepts, and then have models of other families that are doing that well. Like Meredith, your family is a great example and model for how to do supported decision making just naturally. But it also depends on, you know, every family is different, and everybody's needs are different. And so, you know, that is a concern, but also something that I think is important for, you know, professionals in the field to give information and resources to families about those things so that they can learn more about those topics. I see we
Yeah,
only have
so
a few minutes left. So I think I'm going to end with like one final question. The original question I was going to ask the panel: what do you wish was better about the systems for people with disabilities and their families, both the aging system and or the disability system? What would be kind of your hope that, you know, could be better for especially the people listening here that work in the field? Any thoughts or tips that you think could be helpful for them to learn? Meredith, go ahead, and then we'll go to Eric after that.
what I would say is that in both cases, the information being available early on and having those conversations, because like you were saying, there was a lot of people that commented that it's something that has not been talked about. And I think that it needs to be, and so that it should start right from school age, really, to be honest,
Yeah.
because it's important. And it's going to change as they get older, but just starting the conversation.
Great, Meredith. Thank you. Eric, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, along with what Meredith said, I think finding those resources that are out there for people with disabilities and the aging system, because a lot of times there's really good resources out there and you just have to track them down. No, that's what I would recommend, because once you find that resource, you can turn to them. Sometimes there's the aging and adult services in your state. Everything's out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of, you know, great organizations within every state. There's aging and disability resource centers within every state, area agencies on aging, you know, a network of supports with that. And then within the disability, you know, service field, every state's a little different. So that's why you need to really, you know, find other families to help you navigate as well. Lisa, is there anything that you want to add as we close out on, you know, what you wish was better about the systems, or what you wish people would know on here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the whole navigating the process has just been a lot challenging, especially when you're doing it for someone. Well, either way, I think it's going to be hard, but to have to validate who I am before I can have a conversation. And I know that there are documents to be put in place for those things, but because I'm already challenged with having conversations with my mom, it makes things that much harder to be able to call and get information taken care of, to move the needle on some key things that she needs. And just people that are in this space that are working with the aging population, just having a little empathy and understanding that they're changing in who they are. They are not the same versions of themselves when they show up. They may not hear the same or see the same as they are trying to read and understand documents, and just having some patience as they are trying to do the best that they can also. And so I don't know if that's having kind of a navigator within some of those systems to be able to help individuals that don't have a Lisa, for example, to be able to step in and help them with things.
Yeah.
Because yeah, if my mom wasn't there, if I wasn't here, like, I don't know if she would have a lot of the services and things that she's received now in these 4 months.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Well, we are out of time. I want to thank you all for listening in today, or if you're listening to this recording, I want to thank all of the professionals that do such important work within our aging and our disability systems. And, you know, knowing that we're all learning about ways, we can improve things for the families that are impacted. I want to thank our panel. I want to thank Santa Perez, Meredith White, Lisa Matthews, and Eric Stoker. And I'll turn it over to Robin for any final thoughts.
No, that was just so informative, and thank you so much. A lot of things for myself to think about. So thank you again to Lisa, Eric, Meredith, Santa for sharing, for answering questions. Katie, thank you. And thank you to everyone who listened in and asked your questions. We're our Bridging Aging and Disability grantees now have a lot of new information to take back to their state advocacy teams to really come up with some great work. So we're excited to see what they all have coming down the pipe. So we thank you and have a great rest of your day. Thank you again, Katie.
Thank you, everyone. I hope the information we gave was helpful.
Very much so. Thank you,
Thank
Meredith.
Bye.